I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. All right, peace. Today, we re-diving into something that literally blew my mind recently, something that might just shatter everything you thought you knew about money: wealth. And what it means to own something. Get ready for your brain to do some serious gymnastics. Because we re-talking about the philosophy of, if you can rent it, don't buy it. I know, it sounds wild, but hear me out. My whole life, I'd been conditioned to believe that ownership was the ultimate goal, the symbol of success, the bedrock of security, but what I learned, oh shit, it was a totally different game. I just came from this insane meeting with a seriously old school, super successful investor. We were talking about a guy who made some unbelievably accurate calls early in his career, like predicting major market shifts, and now he's, for lack of a better phrase, filthy rich. Like proper, I never have to work again. Money, this isn't some fly. By night crypto bro, this is generational wealth kind of smarts. And honestly, I went into this meeting with all these preconceived notions, thinking this guy must live in some opulent mansion, probably got a fleet of supercars, private jets, all that jazz. My brain was just picturing all the classic signs of extreme wealth, the kind of stuff you see on Instagram or in movies. I was expecting gilded everything, marble statues, maybe even a butler named Jeeves. So I get to his place, and I am not gonna lie, I was genuinely floored. It was a mansion in the suburbs. It was even a penthouse with a rooftop pool. He lives in this incredibly swanky, high-end serviced apartment right in the heart of the city. We re-talking a massive 200+ square meter open plan apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that offer this breathtaking panoramic view of the entire river. The natural light was unreal, just flooding the whole space. The furniture, impeccable taste, really stylish, very minimalist, almost Scandinavian in its clean lines. The whole space felt incredibly open, clean, and just zen, not cluttered at all, which surprised me given my own tendency to collect things I don't really need. It was sparse in a deliberate, elegant way, not in a just-moved-in way, but then came the real shocker. He casually mentions that this whole amazing apartment, he rents it. Monthly rent, my brain, the finance. Bro, it is. Immediately started doing mental math. My eyes probably bugged out a bit. That's like 600,000 units of currency a year, 6 million over 10 years, and this place, in this market, prime real estate, probably worth 20 million. Easy. My mouth might have actually hung open a little. I couldn't help myself. I just blurted it out. But sir, you are spending 6 million over 10 years on rent, and the place isn't even yours. If you bought it outright in 10 years, it would still be yours. And it would probably have appreciated in value. Isn't renting just working for your landlord? I thought I had him with that one. Classic rent money is dead money argument, right? It's what we've all been told since we were kids. Buy property, it is an investment. He just smiled. It was a smug smile, not an arrogant one, more like a calm, knowing look. Like he heard that a million times before and understood exactly where I was coming from. That look said, I used to think that too. Kid, he poured me a cup of tea, a really good one, fragrant and warm, and said, Reed, that calculation you just made, that's how most people think. It's the default setting for almost everyone. Driven by societal norms, family expectations, even some well-meaning but ultimately misguided financial advice. But have you ever considered another way? He paused, letting the question hang in the air, forcing me to actually think beyond my ingrained beliefs, and then he laid out the math. And it was like a cold shower directly to my preconceived notions. My entire financial worldview felt like it was getting a factory reset. He said if I had bought this apartment for 20 million in cash, that money would be completely tied up, locked away in a single illiquid asset. It is like putting all your eggs in one basket and then super gluing that basket to the floor, even if it appreciated to 30 million in 10 years, which is a pretty good return for real estate in a stable market. That is only about a 4% annualized return. My jaw was on the floor, somewhere around my ankles. 4%. That sounds good if you are not doing anything, but compared to other options. But, he continued, leaning forward slightly, his eyes sparkling with a quiet intensity, if I take that same 20 million and invest it strategically, intelligently, even if I only aim for a conservative 8% annual return and honestly with smart investing, you can often do better than that over a decade in 10 years. That 20 million turns into over 43 million. And then he hit me with the punchline, the one that truly changed my perspective forever. Subtract the 6 million I spent on rent over those 10 years, and I still net 17 million in profit. The apartment isn't mine, but the money is, and the money in my hand is actively working for me, generating more money, money tied up in a house. That is dead money. It is a static object that costs you property taxes, maintenance, insurance, and interest. If you have a mortgage, it is a drain, it is a commitment, it is an opportunity cost. Have you ever actually run that calculation, comparing the dynamic power of invested capital versus the static nature of a purchased home? Oh shit, no. I hadn't not like that, not with that level of clarity or with that stark a comparison. It was such a simple comparison, but the implications were huge. My mind was reeling, trying to reconcile this new perspective with everything I'd ever been taught. ID always thought buying a home was the ultimate sign of financial responsibility and smarts. This guy was basically saying it could be a giant anchor. He then pointed out of the window towards a sleek, brand new high-end business van parked effortlessly below. That car, he said, a slight chuckle in his voice. It's also on a long-term lease. I don't deal with depreciation, maintenance, or the hassle of selling it when I want a new model. I just use it, pay a fixed fee, and give it back. Simple, the driver. Contracted staff. An external company handles all the payroll, benefits, and logistics. It is not my employee, it is a service. And those paintings on the walls, he gestured to some really tasteful modern art pieces, perfectly complementing the minimalist decor. Most of these are from art leasing companies. I swap them out every 6 months, so the aesthetic is always fresh, always inspiring without ever having to buy, insure, or worry about the resale value of a single piece. I was genuinely stunned. My internal monologue was just a series of incoherent "wayot." And how is this possible? Here's a man worth hundreds of millions, maybe billions. His home is rented, his primary mode of transportation is leased. Even the art on his walls, which costs a fortune, is temporary. So the question just hung in the air, screaming in my head, what does he actually own? What does he have dominion over? What is his actual stuff? It seemed like nothing. He talked for a long time about what he called the biggest trap for ordinary people, the overwhelming, almost primal desire to own. We work ourselves to the bone, we sacrifice, we stress, all to hoard houses, cars, and all sorts of tangible things we can see and touch. We tell ourselves these are assets, that they bring us security, that they re-a-symbol of our hard work and success. But in the eyes of someone at his level, those things. If they don't have liquidity, if they don't actively generate cash flow, if they not appreciating at a rate that beats inflation and the opportunity cost of investing that money elsewhere, they not assets, they liabilities, they financial anchors. They invisible shackles that nail you to the spot, draining your resources, eating away at your flexibility, and limiting your future options. He said something that truly stung, something that resonated with my own struggles in my early 20s when I was just starting out. Buried in consumer debt, many people spend their entire lives paying to own things. They take out a mortgage to buy a house, effectively working for the bank for 30 years, paying massive amounts of interest. They take out a car loan, again working for the bank, plus all the associated costs of ownership. You think you own these things, but in reality, they own you. That hit hard, because that was me. Stuck in jobs I didn't love, just to service debt on things I thought I needed. To prove I was a successful adult, I was a slave to my possessions, not their master. His principle now, he explained, is incredibly simple, almost elegantly. So if he can rent it, he absolutely will not buy it. House, car, furniture, even his entire team is outsourced. He doesn't have employees in the traditional sense. Everything is contracted, project-based, or leased. It sounded so counterintuitive, almost alien to my own everything mindset, I had to ask. So, what exactly do you do then? If you outsource and rent almost everything, he looked at me completely calm, a slight smile playing on his lips, and said, I do one thing, Reed, I make decisions. I identify trends, I choose the right industries, I allocate resources, I focus on high-level strategy and vision. Everything else I hand it off to professionals. I rent their time, I rent their specialized skills, I rent their hard-won experience. That is where I create value, not in managing inventory or property. Then he dropped another gem, something I'll never forget, something that really crystallized his entire philosophy for me. The most expensive luxury in this world isn't a house. It is not a fancy car. It is not a designer watch. It is flexibility. If you dump all your money into owning things, into accumulating tangible possessions, into being tied down by physical assets, you completely forfeit that flexibility. Want to move to a new city for a new opportunity? You restuck because your house won't sell fast enough, or you lose money on it, want to shift your career path, or jump into a new exciting business venture. Your cash flow is tied up, or worse, completely dried up because all your capital is locked away. You become a prisoner to your assets, they own you. Remember, you can pivot, you can adapt, you can seize new opportunities because you are literally anchored to your stuff. We even got into personal growth, which was awesome because that is something I talk about a lot too. He talked about how so many people burn out and feel overwhelmed because they try to do everything themselves. They want to know everything, to be good at everything, to be completely self-sufficient. You need to understand your time and energy are finite, he stressed. You can be an expert at everything, and you don't need to be an expert at everything. You just need to know who can do it, who has the expertise, and then rent their capabilities at a fair price. He used a simple analogy that really drove the point home. If you want to build a skyscraper, do you personally learn how to make bricks and lay them yourself, or do you hire a dedicated construction company that specializes in that exact thing? The answer is obvious, right? No one in their right mind would try to build a skyscraper from scratch by themselves, but in our daily lives, in our businesses, in our personal projects, so many of us insist on trying to make every single brick ourselves, wasting precious time and energy on things others could do faster and better. It's about leveraging talent, not hoarding it. As I was leaving, he gave me one last piece of wisdom, a parting thought that truly resonated, a concept so profound yet so simple. Life itself is just a rental. You are not just renting houses and cars. You are renting time. You are renting opportunities. You are renting experiences. You are renting life itself. We come into this world with nothing, and we leave with nothing. What we call owning is just borrowing from the world for a little while, a temporary custodianship. And since it is all borrowed anyway, don't cling to it too tightly. Don't let it define you if it works for you. Use it, enjoy it, maximize it for a few more years. If it stops working, if it becomes a burden, give it back early. Don't be afraid to let go. Once you truly grasp that concept, he said, so many material things just aren't worth killing yourself to own. Your mental peace, your freedom, your financial agility, those are far more valuable. On the way home, that financial calculation just kept replaying in my head. 20 million to buy a house, turning into 30 million in 10 years, 20 million invested, turning into 40. 3 million in 10 years, the same initial capital, used in two fundamentally different ways, resulting in almost double the outcome. It is not about never buying a house or a car or never owning anything. It is not about being cheap or living in destitution. It is about radically shifting your perspective on what an asset truly is, and what ownership truly costs you in terms of flexibility, opportunity, and peace of mind. It's about asking yourself, are the things we desperately striving to own actually giving us freedom, or are they quietly building invisible shackles around us? That, my friends, is the million-dollar question, and for me that day, it started a whole new chapter in how I look at my money, my life, and what true wealth actually means. It is not about the stuff you have, it is about the freedom and options you've created. Peace out.